Assalamu alaikum. Good evening to all the viewers tonight on Doctor in the House. Welcome to another program and another year. Is it the first one for the year? Well, if it is, welcome to everyone. So what's tonight's program going to be about? Well, I am now 60 and I find I'm sitting down looking at myself. I just don't feel how I used to feel when I was 59. Or when I was 58 or 57, I think so much is just changing and I'm just slowing down and just not feeling like myself anymore, you know. So I started to think about it and realized that all my patients, the sick ones are mostly older people, and I make a living off treating old people and old sick people. And I realized that, you know, as we get older, we get sicker. So it begins to strike you when you examine this thing, that things like diabetes, heart disease, stroke, cancers, all the things we call chronic diseases or chronic non-communicable diseases or whatever you want to call them. These things tend to happen to us as you get older, but you don't see them in the age 20, 21. So really, there's a bunch of sicknesses that are going to happen to us as we get older. And if we can keep ourselves in a younger mode of bodily function, I think we can do a lot to avoid many of these diseases. So let's talk about staying young. And by staying young, we could probably prevent lots of these things. Maybe not prevent all, but we could prevent quite a bit. That's the topic of tonight's discussion, and I have two guests. Very grateful to these girls for coming, Dr. Jagat, Dr. Anila Jagat, who's been on the program before, and Dr. Raquel Sukhbir. Welcome, ladies, and thank you very much for coming. The first thing I have to tell you is you don't get paid for this, okay? There's no... Sorry, I don't know if we mentioned that before, but you're doing this free tonight, so... okay. So the idea is we're going to talk about trying to stay young and trying to stay healthy young. We'll be shortly doing that. First, though, I have to talk to Alan, the banana farmer. Guys, could you see if you could ring the banana farmer for me? So we constantly talk on this program about dietary fiber. I know you all are fed up hearing me talk about dietary fiber, but sorry, that's the way it goes. Dietary fiber is perhaps the single most important thing for us to try to push in our diets and try to increase, in our diet. And the reason is because when you break down the dietary fiber, you get these short-chain fatty acids. So fats, you could consider fats. One way to look at fats are the short-chain fats, the medium-chain fats, and the long-chain fatty acids. So tonight, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the medium-chain ones. Now, one of the dietary things that contain medium-chain fatty acids are coconuts. So the question of how healthy are coconuts? Is this Alan the banana farmer on, or Alan the fig man? Hello there.
Hello.
Hi there, Alan. Good night.
Good night.
And thanks for joining us again. So
yes. Are we farming bananas tonight? Again?
No, tonight we're talking about coconuts.
Okay.
So I was just saying that we tend to promote fiber as a source of short-chain fatty acids in the colon, but there's been talk about using medium-chain fatty acids from coconuts and some other vegetable products to try to improve people's health. And a lot of my patients nowadays tell me they take coconut oil. They add, a little bit of coconut oil to their. They actually take down 1 or 2 teaspoons or tablespoons of coconut oil with their meals. I was wondering, what would your opinion be on this practice? And the question, how healthy is coconut oil? Should people be using more of it? And if so, how,
Okay. Well, I think everything has to be taken in the context of how much people eat. Currently, people eat too much. They take in a vast amount of long-chain fatty acids, and they develop fatty livers, insulin insensitivity, and stuff like that. We just take an abnormal amount of long-chain fatty acids. That doesn't mean long-chain fatty acids are bad, but we just take too much. Perhaps switching from that and lowering fat consumption and perhaps switching to a bit of medium chains might be of some use. There's some evidence that it is of use. There's also some evidence that medium chain fatty acids, if overdone, can be toxic to the heart, So it is important that people don't go overboard. The first thing you have to do is, if you are taking in too much fat, too much calories, and that, in my humble opinion, would be to tone it down. Don't try to take coconut oil to compensate for taking in too much fat and calories overall. That's the first thing. But the next thing is the evidence, right? And the evidence is mixed, right? We know that they have less, in moderate quantities, they can substitute for other oils, and they have less pathogenicity. But we also know that when we feed rats 5 and 10% lauric acid diet, not rats, mice, it becomes cardiotoxic.
Mm-hmm. Lauric acid is the principal fat in coconut oil, I think.
It's about 50% is lauric acid, and then there's another. Lauric acid is a 12 carbon acid.
Okay, so you're saying in high quantities it can be toxic to rats.
In mice, and the problem is it never gets beyond the mice. Nobody does human experiments to talk about. There's a consensus is emerging among some nutritionists that a judicious amount of it is worthwhile. But in the context of a reduced long-chain fatty acid intake.
So what you're saying is basically we all eat too much, and we all eat too much fats anyway, so adding more fat is just going to make us fat, to put it bluntly.
Yes, though coconut oil seems to have some effect on obese people, some favorable effect on obese people.
Yeah, but the studies in which they did that, they actually controlled the diets and they reduced the caloric intake of both groups.
This is the thing. This is the thing.
Okay, so basically then, so you have, let's say you're putting somebody on a diet with, keeping their intake very low. Would a little bit of coconut oil be good to, because you know what, there's a friend of mine, Dr. Nilash Ramnarayan, who we always argue about this thing about fats. If I eat a meal with no fats, I just don't feel full. And I keep eating and eating and eating, and I don't feel full. So he says that a little bit of fats will promote satiety, and maybe actually the person may eat less in the long run. I find if I eat coconut, not the oil, I nibble on the coconut jelly, or what do you call it, hard, when it turns hard, no?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just nibble on that, and I feel a bit fuller, and I kind of stop eating.
Yeah, I have that experience too. So the problem is with oil is when I hear people telling people to take tablespoons of the oil. A teaspoon is about 40 calories. This is a very concentrated source of calories. Huh? So I think this is not a cure-all, but we should take it in the context of our whole diet. It's not going to fix things. It's not going to fix a lot of the things
Okay,
that are wrong in
fair
all
enough.
that.
So yeah, there has to be seen with some sense. Suppose you were getting Alzheimer's. Suppose you realized that you noticed you were slowing down, your memory was slowing down pathologically, you know, you realized that you were getting a early stages of Alzheimer's disease. Would you supplement with coconut oil?
I should think that one aspect of Alzheimer's, at least some Alzheimer's, is a difficulty with glucose metabolism. I think that is possible. And I have seen anecdotal cases where people coconut oil does tend to produce ketone bodies and promote ketosis much faster. And I've seen testimonies whereby patients have said, yes, they recovered a lot and they couldn't do certain tasks and now they could. So I could imagine that it is worthwhile.
It's a little bit like a ketogenic diet.
A total of about half a teaspoon a day. That is about it.
Half teaspoon
a day.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Can you cook with it then? Suppose you say cook with it.
It is probably safe enough to cook with it, but I am against frying because once you raise these oils to their smoking temperature, they start to change chemically to form polyaromatic hydrocarbons, and these things aren't good.
Okay.
Frying is a no-no, you know. People shouldn't fry anything.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Okay. Okay. So the bottom line is, I think we both agree that these things basically make you fat. There's a lot of calories in it, and that's bad for you.
Yeah. But I think it's promoted as some sort of cure for a bad diet.
Yeah.
No, the cure for a bad diet is a good diet, and then you can add all the bells and whistles. I mean, there's several fatty acids that are very complex. They constitute a very complex subject. They do a lot of things to the body. You have saturated, unsaturated. You have omega-3s, 6, 9s, and each one does different things. You would remember a while back, and I don't want to push this too much further, that everybody was promoting polyunsaturated fats. But these themselves can be very damaging when you take them, you know, at the level they were hyped.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's about the size of it.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much once again. Appreciate your chatting with us.
Yeah, we're a long way from bananas, but okay.
Okay, sorry. Next month we get back to bananas.
Okay then.
Good night. Okay, so sorry about all the coconut oil advocates in my patienthood and so, but it really the medical evidence is not that strong to support you taking this thing as a supplement in addition to your eating. It may have health benefits, but it's a really complex subject. And just bear in mind, if you're going to swallow down teaspoons of coconut oil, it will promote weight gain, and it will be very difficult to lose weight. You know. He said 1 teaspoon of it is 40 calories. So if you take 2 teaspoons of coconut oil, that's 80. You have to walk, I would say, at least a mile. Or what? I would have to walk a long distance to burn 80 calories off.
10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, we'll soon be back with Dr. in the house talking about how to stay young in our golden years. Like I'm getting into my golden years here. We'll soon be back after a short commercial break.
High blood pressure is as dangerous as an overpumped balloon. Measuring your blood pressure every day can save you from risk of high blood pressure. MicroLife fully automatic upper arm blood pressure monitor with stroke risk detection. MicroLife AFib screens for atrial fibrillation while taking your blood pressure. High blood pressure and atrial fibrillation are both considered controllable risk factors for stroke. If AFib is present during blood pressure measurement, the AFib icon is displayed flashing at the end of the triple measurement. Once 3 measurements are complete, the measurement data are shown on the display. MicroLife, a partner for people, for life.
medical assistance? Come check us out at Ultimate Medical Clinic. We offer a wide variety of medical treatments. Why live in pain and suffer with wounds and ulcers?
Ultimate Medical Clinic also provides laser therapy for pain relief and wound healing.
We also treat arthritis, knee, neck pains, diabetic neuropathy, diabetic foot sores, psoriasis, eczema, and many more health conditions. Call us today to schedule your appointment, 665-1188, or visit us at 111A John Street, Montrose, Chaguanas.
Welcome back to Doctor in the House, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Omar Dean, and my guests tonight, Dr. Sukhbir and Dr. Jagat. We're going to be talking tonight about how to stay young. Dr. Jagat, why we want to stay young anyway?
Well, I was listening to Dr. Sukhbir, went on her website, and one of the quotes that stood out to me was, your later years should be your best years. And I think this is what we want to take in this program. And when we mean later years, we're not talking necessarily starting at the age of 60, but starting in your mid-30s, because this is where we need to start good health, really at any age. And a point you made, Dr. Sukhbir, is that, we're seeing diseases at all ages now, and I'm certainly seeing it. And in my specialty, one of the things I pick up is polycystic ovaries, which is on a background of insulin resistance. And this is a condition where there's a myriad of, a spectrum where it could just be an incidental diagnosis of polycystic ovaries all the way to infertility and miscarriages. But the important thing about this, it's on a background of insulin resistance, because so many of our families in Trinidad has diabetes. Yeah. And, so for me, from my public health view in my practice, is preventing my patients, because, we pick it up early. And with polycystic ovaries, you do have problems with weight, issues with weight that then throws off your cycle. And a lot of the times the patient comes to us because they're having problems with their cycle, or they can't get pregnant, or they can't keep a pregnancy. But the thing about polycystic ovaries is if you do have it, you have a 25% chance of developing diabetes
Only 25%?
In pregnancy. And then if you do develop diabetes in pregnancy, you have a 50% chance of developing it long term. And we know that diabetes is causing a lot of problems in this country in terms of, needing dialysis machine, in terms of renal failure. So if we dial right back and start,
And dying of heart attack.
Yeah, and dying of
everything.
I am sorry, I think it's probably much higher than that. First of all, adult Indian people in this country have approximately 20% risk of diabetes anyway in their lifetime. So I think it's probably a lot. I think basically diabetes, premature aging. Look, in the first world, they see in kids now with type 2 diabetes. Certainly they have teenagers with it, and they get even into childhood, pediatric age group, they get in kids with type 2 diabetes.
At the age of 12.
So I imagine they're going to be getting the polycystic ovary thing a lot earlier too.
Yeah. No, you're getting it earlier, but I'm saying is that we want to prevent the development of diabetes. And I'm just using diabetes as an example because it's one of the diseases that's affecting us most, and we could probably prevent the onset or delay the onset, so push it back as far as we can. And we all see in cases in our practice where patients are doing the work, eating healthy, exercising, and reversing their diabetes. And what we mean by that is if you were pre-diabetic, then you go back to being, within a normal range. If you are diabetic, then you become diabetic with managing only on diet and exercise. Or if you want a lot of medications, then you decrease the dose of the medication and the amount of medications, because as we know, medications have side effects, and sometimes we need more medications to counteract the side effects of medication. So that's why I've used diabetes as an example, because it is so pervasive in our society, and yes, we say Indians, but it affects everybody, Yeah. So Dr. Sukhbir, I mean, I really like that quote, let your later years be your best years. And that could be starting at any age, whether we want to start at 25 or 35. So how do we age healthily? You know, how do we, as we move forward in life, how do we maintain a healthy lifestyle?
Okay, so good night. Thank you for having me, guys, on the show. That's a very, good question to ask. How do we reverse or stop the aging process? Everybody wants to know, how do we stay young and what's the magic pill? And I'm afraid there is none. There is no one thing that you can do. And I think it's not so much about necessarily living longer, but I like to think about how we're going to live, Dr. Omar Deen, when we get to the, what did you
My
call it? The
golden
golden
age. Yeah, I mean,
Not,
I think you still have some time, you know.
I think he's definitely not in the golden age
No,
yet.
not yet, not
Yeah.
yet.
And I think you're a model person. But essentially, it's how do we want to live? So how I want to live when I get older is still fit, healthy, dressing myself, taking care of myself, living alone independently, not relying on my family to look after me, and living a healthy, fulfilled life where I finally, after working all my life, get to the point where I can enjoy everything.
Yes.
I can enjoy food, I can enjoy exercise and leisure and travel. So that is really what anti-aging medicine is all about.
Yeah.
And I think it's a combination of things, but the real focus is getting good habits in that we can start doing lots of things in our lives from now. And trying to spare a thought for yourself in your 60s when you are in your 30s.
Yes.
And not necessarily just living the life that we, tend to live when we're stressed and depressed and working hard and playing hard.
Yes,
Which
and
is,
that's your 20s,
that's
really.
your 20s and
Yeah,
your 30s
playing and your
and your
30s.
40s.
Yes, these days it's your 40s too. It just doesn't stop at 35 anymore. Yes.
So you both talk a lot about proper nutrition
Yeah.
and exercise, and that's a part of it.
Yeah.
But I think something that we don't really often pay enough attention to is our stressors.
Yeah.
So these chronic stressors and their impact on our health and well-being. And what it's doing to us on a cellular level, in terms of oxidation, which is kind of damage to our cells,
To the cells,
versus
yes.
what we consider to be antioxidants, which are, you could say promoting the life of our cells. So chronic stress in the form of all kinds of things, medication, stresses in terms of environmental influences like work, just sitting in traffic, having a medical condition, all of these things.
And that's most Trinidadians.
That's
you
everybody.
know.
Like,
yeah,
it's all
I
of
mean,
us.
if you just think of all these people who come in into Port of Spain to work and
They
leaving,
have to travel
yeah,
so far
leaving
to
Sandy Grande, San Fernando, waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning,
Morning,
not, rushing to get out onto the road, not having a proper breakfast and getting to work and probably grabbing a doubles because they want something hot and probably, chasing that down
So
with
you
a can
named-
of Coke.
You named quite a few of
Yeah.
the problems
Yeah,
right there.
yeah.
It's you're stressed, but also what do you do when you're stressed? What are your coping mechanisms for
Yeah.
that stress? So I would, if I may, just talk a little bit about cortisol, which is like the stress hormone that is released during periods of stress. So what that does, cortisol acts at a few levels. If you look at how cortisol acts on your brain, it decreases the neurotransmitters, or if there's another word for that, that's like the levels of
The brain
The brain
receptors.
receptors that
Yeah.
produce something called serotonin and dopamine.
Which are the happy
Those are the
hormones.
happy hormones.
Yeah.
And so our levels of those go down, and we find, we're looking for satisfaction somewhere. So what do? We open up the cupboard, and we're just blindly looking into the cupboard, looking into the fridge, and we want
And
to.
what I find is when I stress,
Eat
I
some
really want carbohydrates
carbohydrates.
to eat,
Everybody has
whether
their-
it's in chocolate cake or bread, or I really
Yeah.
reach for carbohydrates
What's
because
yours,
that
Nancy?
Sugar-
is
What's
sugar
yours?
is good, yeah.
Sugar is good.
Yeah,
It's-
because
it's
the
the
body is
quickest thing,
stressed
yeah.
and it's the old fight or flight
Fight
response.
response.
And what it is that the body breaks down easier is sugar.
Sugar.
So you will want the sugar, you know. And that's another point. When you develop an insulin resistance, it's not that you don't have the sugar in the body, but the body can't,
cells doesn't know what to do with
cannot
it.
access the sugar.
Yeah.
So what you do now is you take more sugar,
sugar.
because the body is craving it, you know. So if you were a person who didn't really like sugar and start to suddenly want sugar, then watch yourself.
So in relation to weight gain
Yeah.
and weight loss, these stresses are a big thing because it affects your happy hormones. So you
Yeah.
have less, so you want to eat more, and you have more cravings. It affects your thyroid gland, so your metabolism slows down. It affects your adrenal glands, your fight or flight response
Yeah.
thing. So you make more stress hormone, and then your body then also, those insulin receptors
Yeah.
become resistant. So, you know, you store all of your fuel as fat.
So a lot of people
So
talk
you
about
get into the
yeah.
cycle of just eating and weight gain and eating and stress.
But a lot of people talk about the belly fat, you know, they're exercising and there's this belly fat. And I'm thinking that cortisol is what deposits this belly fat there.
It is definitely.
So
one
those
the-
of you all wondering why you have this belly
Belly
fat,
fat.
it's all the stress hormones. So I think if you start managing your stress, and I mean, we're talking about all the stress and the happy hormones or whatever, but how are some of the ways that we could manage the stress, you know?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think, firstly, acknowledging that you do have a lot going on is one of the first steps. And then learning little coping mechanisms that you can do during your day to help you manage that. So learning, normally identifying what your
Stresses, yeah.
what your stresses are, and then what your coping mechanism is,
yeah.
and then seeing, okay, well that one's not so good. Maybe I will change it to
Yeah.
doing something else, and also adding. I love adding physical activity.
Yeah.
Because getting somebody out of the house at 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. for an afternoon walk around the block, you know, spending time with their plants
Yeah.
or their children outside, helps just do that naturally and helps with your diurnal pattern of
So you
cortisol.
sleep
So that
better,
you sleep
sleep
better.
better.
And then when you are faced with those stresses the next day, you can respond a bit better.
And a lot of research has shown that being in nature just rebalances you.
Yeah,
Yeah. So people who live in cities have a hard time coping, you know, because their diurnal rhythm, as you put it, your day and night, and what we mean by day and night and the amount of light you receive is off balance, because in cities there's all these bright lights. So that's why a lot of cities try to create green spaces that you could go. But
I mean, look at this bright light shining on us right now. This is messing up our diurnal rhythm to be awake.
Definitely. We need some melatonin tonight.
So we talk about eating healthy, we talk about exercise, and then, you know, and weight loss. I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, you know, I don't think we're that obese, but compared to how we were 30 years ago, we are putting on a lot of weight, you know.
Definitely.
So how do we, and I know this is a particular favorite of yours, is weight
Yes.
loss, you know, and how do we go about, you know, and when we say weight loss, we don't want you to become skinny, because, I mean, sometimes I have
Why not?
clients.
Skinniness
No,
is
no,
a
no,
good
no.
thing.
I don't agree with that, because I have clients come in and go, I wish I could be like you. And I'm like, no, you have to be like you, because, you know, I'm small bone. I'm naturally tiny. I've always been like that. But, you know, some people, so what we really want to drive home is to be your ideal weight. Your healthy
To be
weight.
lean and
yeah,
healthy.
Yeah, your healthy weight, whatever that is for you. Because sometimes you have big people, you can have a big person and completely healthy, and then you have somebody skinny like me who's not, you know. So it's about being your healthy weight, and that's what we want to get across, not being skinny, but what is your healthy weight and how do we get there?
Well, I focus a little bit less on weight.
Yeah.
And I focus a little bit less on the body mass index because, you know, it's a tool. It's a very good tool.
So let's tell the public what we mean by body mass
What is
index.
a body mass index? So the body mass index is dividing your weight dividing it by your height, and then
Yeah.
coming out with a tool to say, am I a normal weight? Am I overweight? Or am I obese?
Yeah, so there's a range.
There's a
right?
range.
Yeah.
But I like abdominal circumference. I mean,
Okay.
I use body mass index, but I also use abdominal circumference a lot because
Yeah.
you know, the body mass index in different ethnicities
Yeah, it's
vary
different.
because of the weight of our bones
Yeah.
and because of the weight of our muscles, but also the abdominal circumference in Indian ethnicities
Yeah.
tends to be a really
Bigger.
powerful indicator
Yeah.
of cardiovascular disease to come, and by that I mean strokes and heart attacks.
Right.
Our genetics, you know, our bodies, we weren't unfortunately made for Western lifestyles,
No.
where we have all this stuff that is available to us prolifically. Our organs are meant to be laboring like back out there in the fields doing hard work for like a lot of the day.
Actually,
And so-
Dr. Omardine will agree with you there because we've had discussions where he talked about, you know, our ancestors or our predecessors in India and the monsoon season where you will go through the season where food is scarce because of the extreme of the climate,
environment,
like
yeah.
all the flooding.
So
So
you
we
have
would
to
have
store.
periods of fasting. And in all cultures, there are periods of fasting. Like the Muslim culture, you do the 40-day fast before Eid, you know, and you're not eating anything from sunrise to sunset. So that gives the body time to regenerate the cells because it's not spending all its energy eating. And with Hinduism, you have fasting certain times. So yeah, but now nobody really does that anymore unless you're a diehard, you know, following your culture.
I love that you brought up fasting.
Yes,
I
yes,
know we're going
yes.
off topic.
No,
but
I think that's all
but
part
I
of
love
it.
that you
Yeah.
brought it up because I love adding it's intermittent fasting.
Yes.
to-
And everybody's
to-
talking about it.
and it's
the
so
hot,
popular and
It's
it's
the
so
hot
topical.
topic right now.
So
yeah.
I love adding
Yeah.
it to pretty much everyone's regime.
And how do you do it? Because we need to be able to do it safely, not
definitely.
have people starving themselves, especially women, because and those are the ones who do it the most, because it affects the reproductive cycle
Oh, I
also.
didn't know that. Can
Yeah.
you explain that to me?
So if the weight loss is severe,
Oh, and you start to lose muscle mass. Oh,
well,
yes.
not just muscle mass, because when you become, because you know, healthy eating to extreme is the new eating disorders where women take it to extreme, and what it does is interferes with the reproductive cycle, so they're not getting their cycles anymore. And in the past, we've known this in ballerinas and athletes where
it's
they
like anorexia.
yeah, almost like anorexia.
Yeah.
So we need to, I mean, it'd be great to talk about intermittent fasting, but in a safe
way.
environment. So how do you recommend it?
Okay, so I agree with you. Definitely, you shouldn't undereat or starve yourself to that extent. And something to stray a little bit more, something that I recently discovered, largely anecdotally from a lot of my patients who say to me, you know, I get to the age of 40 and I just can't eat anything anymore. As soon as I do, I put on weight. And then what do? They starve themselves even more and they over-exercise. And I learned that the reason that you then have difficulty losing weight is because you've put your body into a state of malnutrition.
Right.
So when you're in a state of malnutrition, your liver and all of your organs are holding on to its fat.
Yeah, because it doesn't
I don't
know.
want to
Yeah.
let this go because I'm
Yeah.
starving.
Yeah, in a state
so
of
you're not going to
starvation.
lose weight that
Yeah.
way. That is unsafe and unhealthy. But a safe way to do intermittent fasting is like this. This is what I like. I don't really like to think about the hours that I'm fasting for. I more like to think about it like a window of eating. So I like picking 2 or 3 days for the week that is going to be easy on you relatively, so you're not, traveling
not
long
exercising
distances.
or-
You can
Yeah.
exercise, but moderately.
Yeah,
So you're not
yeah.
doing CrossFit, which I hate anyway, but sorry. Or you're not doing extreme exercise.
Yeah.
And you I normally choose like a 5-hour eating window.
Yeah.
So I say from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Yeah.
if you're a slightly earlier bird, or if
Yeah.
you're a later bird, from 3 p.m. till 8 p.m. This is your eating window.
Yeah.
And you're allowed cups of tea with no sugar and no milk
Yeah.
during the day. You don't have to become dehydrated, is what
Yeah.
I'm trying to
Lots of
say.
water,
Drink
drink
lots
lots
of
of
water,
Yeah.
drink
fluids
lots of
and-
fluids that don't contain sugar,
Mm-hmm.
and you will maintain your fasting state until you break your fast
Yeah.
at 2 or 3 p.m. And then you can eat foods that basically what you want. But if you're trying to lose weight, try to have less calories. Don't gorge then
Yeah,
in that eating window. And the health benefits of intermittent fasting, to my mind, for that insulin resistance that you were talking about with your women with polycystic ovaries.
Yeah.
For that insulin resistance in 50% of us, I think, walking around in Trinidad,
Yeah.
who we're all overweight, we have diabetes, we have polycystic ovaries. Intermittent fasting is a very good thing. Not to mention the spiritual benefits of it as well. So if you were to potentially do your intermittent days where you had something that you were to dedicate that day to,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
something that you were to think about,
Like a meatless Monday or
Meat-
something
or,
like that.
or a reset your chakras Friday. I don't know, not necessarily,
Yeah.
but or you think about your goals, restructure
Yeah.
something that you could do with your family, then it would have potentially a lovely effect on chronic stress as well. And
So what we're
improving our
saying,
health.
because when you think of intermittent fasting, people say go 18 hours, and that's like really difficult, which means like have dinner by 6 o'clock the night before and not eat till 12 the next day.
No.
But you've broken it down really easily, because you could easily, if you have dinner by 7 at night and 7 next morning, you have breakfast, then that's 12
12
hours.
hours, yeah.
And then if you're saying, okay, breakfast at 7, but then you give yourself 5 hours, so then lunch at 12 o'clock. But you're not really snacking, but you're rehydrating. You're having your water, your coconut water, your tea, but nothing.
not coconut water.
Oh, because the coconut
Because of the
water
sugar.
have sugar. But if you take the younger one, as some people say, not as sweet. But those who like
Well,
coconut
the idea
water.
is that once you put any calorie in the insulin is going to turn on. The idea
Okay,
is to shut
right.
off
So
insulin.
it's just
if you want to do it
water.
properly,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think a little coconut water is going to produce much insulin.
Okay, so we
but if
could-
you want to do it, it's
There's
ideal.
a theory that you can have 45 calories, but I tend to say don't have any.
Okay, so
black tea and
so
coffee.
so we
is
want
okay.
so basically we want to make it easy because we believe in it, but we don't want you doing it in a dangerous
then,
way
yeah.
where, because I've had patients come in, I'm doing this 2 to 3 days a week, and I'm like, oh my God, are we heading towards some sort of eating disorder?
How
Because
bad could it be, Anila? I don't have, I mean, I haven't, in my practice in Trinidad, I haven't seen a single patient in my office with an eating disorder, with an anorexia nervosa. Half of my patients are
no,
overweight.
I'm not saying
So-
they have anorexia nervosa, but I am seeing it dealing with mainly young women
women.
who come in and they want to get healthy and then take it to the
They
extreme.
want to also look good.
So
They
yeah, they
also
want to look
follow a
good.
Western
Yeah.
supermodel
Well,
figure
not
thing.
just that, but they think that you could do it quickly.
Yeah.
And it's not.
It's
not about
it's a
doing it
different
quickly.
patient group we see, and you're seeing a different one compared to me. But I mean, this is interesting because you want them to do it, and it's easy to do, and it's to break it down because you think. But sometimes I'm a grazer. I'm somebody who will eat and then continue to eat. I am like that, and not all the time. And I notice that in certain times of your cycle too, as women, like I would clear the fridge and go back to Massey and get more things. But then there's other times I don't want to eat. And one of the things in reducing your stress in life is being gentle with yourself. That is like my mantra for 2019. Be compassionate, be kind, and be gentle, but start with yourself. So when patients come to me and I'm like, basically, I'm like, you need to be compassionate. You
I
need
agree
to
with
start because I'm somebody who, and I tell them, I said, you need to chart your cycle because this is what I do. I'm a gynecologist. And, you know, sometimes as women, we don't realize that our hormones affect how we do things, you know. And now it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether you're on your cycles, whatever. We just continue life, you know, as if, you know, back in the day, and you've seen a lot of cultures where at a certain time in a woman's cycle, she'll go off into a hut, which I'm not recommending because recently in Nepal, somebody got killed because they were in a hut. But the point is that that time in their cycle, they will take time off, you know, to recuperate whatever, you know, women in ancient cultures who were in charge of housework or whatever, they will be given time off to just go off for those 4 or 5 days where they recuperate. Now we have careers, we run in households, so we don't take time as women to recharge. And when they come and they're like, oh, I can't, you know, I'm eating everything. I said, just chart your cycles. You will see at certain time in your cycles, you're eating more. And that's usually 3rd week of the cycles. And so, you know, it's we all want to be healthy, but we can't force people to do things in a certain way. So be compassionate, be kind. And I think that what you've given us is a really amazing prescription of how to do this intermittent fasting, because we have from eating from 7 o'clock in, you know, by 7 o'clock in the
window,
night,
A 5
not grazing all night because we like to take a snack or whatever. So stop the eating there by 7 o'clock next morning. You could have your breakfast and then have lunch at 12 or 1, but don't be eating all sorts of things. So just water or tea or even coffee without milk or sugar. Because the whole point is you want to give your body a break from insulin. So if you give it any calories at all, you're going to get that insulin spike. And the whole thing is resetting the clock to your whole metabolic clock.
It's letting
So,
your receptors recover.
Yeah.
I really think this is fascinating. What you've said, I find is profound, you know. I mean, I think women try to ignore a lot of aspects of the femininity.
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
this is really important. It's never spoken about.
And that's
I
why
don't
we
hear
have-
anybody talk about it. Certainly not a doctor in the house. But
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying, I personally think women should run the world, and that's my personal opinion.
Don't worry,
But
don't.
at the same time, I think they have to be cognizant of their physiology, and they ignore the fact that they have cycles. What about pregnancy and what about motherhood? You know,
Well,
this is
that's one of the
it's-
biggest fights I have with my pregnant woman, because I'm like, you're pregnant, take it easy. You know, they want to even do more than in the pregnancy than they did before the pregnancy, because they think, oh, this new baby is going to come and it's going to change my life. So I have to say, dial back, slow down, take it easy, because, you know, you have, you're vulnerable in a pregnancy state. You need to rest, you need to relax. But today,
then when-
women take on so much.
I don't know I'm not sure if it's financial too, maybe, but
I'm not too sure if it's so much financial, but I think it's a need to prove yourself,
Yeah.
you know. It's a
to
really
compete with
need.
men, is it? Or is it
Well,
to,
I mean,
to prove yourself?
I mean, in our profession, and I was talking to somebody about this lately, and it's only a few years I have stopped doing that, you know. And I mean, once I've crossed 40, I'm in my 40s. Because by then I achieved everything I wanted and there was nothing to prove myself. But in our profession, you have, at least in my time, because I graduated like a long time now, 20-something years ago, is you had to be better than the boys to get ahead, you know. And I was telling somebody a story, I think it was one of my clients, where I was on my cycles and, you know, I was in a particular rotation, and I remember not being okay that particular day, and the nurse being concerned because seeing a young intern, and she's like, what's wrong? And I must have been in pain or something, you know, which was the only time in my life that happened, but I was so busy. And she's like, oh, let me call for help for you. And I was like, no. And she's like, why? And I said, because if you call for help, they'll think I cannot cope, you know. And that came up because another young doctor came up to me, and she had an incident, and my first question was, why didn't you take time off? And then when she went through it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. But, you know, and then I recalled the incident in my life when I was an intern where I felt like, I wasn't okay, and I didn't feel comfortable to take time off because I felt the finger would be pointed at me and say, well, that's why women shouldn't be in medicine. But so, I mean, in this day and age, I don't know if it's so much that women in medicine or that the competition to get a job, because it's...
But that's serious, right?
Yeah,
The
it's
pressures- the
about
pressures for
three.
job.
Yeah, it's
But
about
also, you know,
300.
there's also the other aspect of motherhood. I mean, what happens when a newborn kid? Are they getting the attention they really? But fathers can't really do what a mother does.
Well,
right?
fathers can't breastfeed.
Exactly, and breastfeeding is particularly important, I think.
Well, the thing is,
but, I mean,
yeah.
what you thought about what Raquel was saying about?
Because we've gone totally off
Sorry,
course
we're
now.
ignoring Raquel.
But Raquel is a mother, so she could tell
I'm a
us,
mom, yeah.
she could tell
What do you
us.
think about her thing about if you're fasting that day, or dedicate the fast to
Well,
something, maybe a spiritual component to it?
Well, the thing about it is good health medicine is really now about mind, body, and spirit. And, the World Health Organization will always said that health is about mind, body, mind and body, not just the thing. And now we could add spirit to it. Because in Western medicine, we've always ignored that spiritual aspect,
I don't think you would have ignored it, though. You would have been doing it.
No, us as human individual,
as a
but
practitioner,
it's not
but
part
not
of the component. Whereas, like Chinese medicine, they include that. Ayurvedic medicine, they do. But how we were trained in the West, it's not part of it, And that's why we find people, when they're not getting what they need from us, go off to the healers and the herbalists, and sometimes they get taken advantage of because there is a part of our medicine that doesn't take part. So in that, we have patients in pain and we can't find a reason for the pain. We have patients who are depressed, we can't find a reason for the depression, and medicating is not the answer. And I mean, when she was talking about it, about managing your stresses and being happy, part of it is if you're not happy in your spirit, you're not happy. And me personally, when I talk about disease, I always says you are dis-ease. And I say to my patients, well, what are you at dis-ease at? And I just leave them to figure it out, whether they do or not, And most of us can't figure out what we are dis-ease at, And even if we have an inkling of it, we are too afraid to change our life, because we build this lifestyle around certain things and certain people. So if suddenly we're like, oh, that doesn't make me happy, we're afraid to even change that because it's going to unravel our carefully built life,
Definitely. I find that once you get somebody sleeping properly, once you get them to start sleeping for 7 to 9 hours a night of uninterrupted, lovely sleep, it's like a light goes on where they're like, I needed that.
Yeah.
And all of these things, like my neck pains and my headaches and my, all of the diseases that, what you were saying, the diseases.
Yeah.
These, if I like to think of it like fruits on a tree.
Yeah.
And you want to chop off every single branch, or you want to start treating the root cause of all of the illness.
Yeah.
So sleep is like a gateway, and then once you get there,
and the reason why
they're stronger, so they can start to get better from the
and the
roots up.
reason why it's a gate,
And mind and body is really great.
And the reason why it's a gateway is, one is that your soul/spirit gets a chance to rest, and your body gets a chance to rejuvenate. But then if you have all these stresses where you're concerned about the job, and these days a job is not what it used to be. It's like they take everything out of you. So those of us who are lucky to be in independent practice, because where we are our own bosses, that has a certain amount of stress too, but at the same time you don't have somebody telling you how to run your time. But not everybody is that lucky, and when you have to think about colleagues and a boss and making the timeline, and these days jobs take as much out of you as possible, and and it's about the promotion, and it's about keeping your job, and now people go on holidays and they don't switch off the phone.
Every year, but all over the world, not just Trinidad, the States.
No, it's the whole world, and the reason for it is you're in constant communication. I mean, I have this thing. I have two separate emails: a personal email and one for my practice. I make sure on
You
my
never
phone.
switched off, girl.
No. I make sure on my phone that my practice email is not there. So when I go on holidays, I am not checking to see, because the minute you see a problem, you don't stop to say you're on holidays. You try to sort it out. And this is what is happening. And that's why people say take a social media diet, take a break from it. But mentally, they're not switching off. Before, like 30 years ago, you leave home at 4, not doctors, everybody else but doctors. You leave work at 4, and that's it. You switch off. Now there is no switch off time. People are taking their work at home. And it's stressing them, because when they come home, they're not
before,
relaxing.
my grandparents, before electricity was
Yeah.
commonly
Yeah.
available, you switch off when the sun go down.
Exactly.
But you can't see it. You have to put a flambeau on, and things get very quiet. Your mind used to get quiet.
but
and,
That's why people can't sleep. It's
And
because
that's
of
why
these lights coming from
Raquel
a-
says the diurnal rhythm,
the
because
diurnal
because
rhythm
you
gets
started
out
to
of
go
whack.
down with the sun.
Yeah,
Right.
and the first thing I have to say is, okay, what's your sleep hygiene? What
Yeah.
are you doing before bedtime? And most of the time,
And,
I'm on my phone like before. I go
Because
to
I
bed.
have teenagers who
That's
come
just
in
tough.
and their cycles are off, and the first thing I ask is, what time do you go to bed? And the mother is like, oh, they up till 2 o'clock in the morning or whatever. It's like, no.
late.
I said, by 10 o'clock you have to be off. Because the mother says, or the mother will say to me, oh, midnight is still awake. And I was like, okay, what time do you get off social media? And the mother is like, how you know? I said, of course I know. I said, that phone has to be switched off at 10 o'clock in the night, because, then you need to then relax before you go to bed. Because if you're on that phone, looking at what is going on with your friends or whatever, you don't switch off. That activity continues in your brain. And going back to getting a good sleep, one of the things, back in the day when, I've been okay with sleep. It's not been an issue, but there's been times in medicine where you're stressed. And I remember there was a time, not that I had problems sleeping, but I wasn't sleeping well. And what I started doing was, when the sun came down, started to go down, I will take time off and go sit and watch the sunset, and that helps, to just stop at that time in the day and just take in the sunset. Not everywhere you could see it, but you could see the sun going down. No, it really works. Research has shown that, one of the things, if you're having trouble sleeping, just stop at that time of the day and watch the sun go down,
Definitely.
Yeah.
So they're doing some studies.
Oh, we haven't opened up the line. Yeah, go
They're
ahead.
doing some studies
Yeah.
with sleep
Yeah.
and weight gain that show, your gene leptin
Yeah.
and your gene ghrelin. So when you don't get your 7 hours of sleep a night,
Yeah.
leptin goes down and ghrelin goes up, and you gain more weight. So leptin is the thing that basically makes you feel satisfied when you eat food, and
Yeah.
it's a trigger to make you stop eating. So that's why we're just like, again, opening the cupboard looking for something, because we're sleep deprived and our leptin levels are low, and we're looking
But-
for external comfort
Exactly.
in our food, which we would have been fine with.
But
if we'd
also
gotten
that
some-
if you're not sleeping well, then when you wake up in the morning, you're drinking coffee.
Yeah.
And then at night, you're drinking wine because you need to go to sleep. So
Yeah,
you're
that is a big
stimulating
one.
yourself, and then, so you're not sleeping well, you're stimulating yourself to
Yeah, but
stay
if you have to
awake.
get up at
And-
5 o'clock in the morning to
Yeah.
get on the road, to get some for your child before you get on the wrong traffic to
Exactly,
get to
yeah.
work, you have to.
Yeah.
It's real tough.
It's really tough. I have to go to sleep early to get thing. And then, of course, throughout the day, you're drinking all sorts of stimulants to keep you awake. And then at night, you can't sleep because you're exhausted, but you're totally wired. So let's go to...
You talk about sleep hygiene, which personally for me has been a big challenge in my life. I think I've made a lot of progress with it, but I
You
use
have to work on
melatonin, and electronic screens is like, it's terrible in the night, and it messes up your
Just the
appetite
blue
function,
light.
yeah,
The blue
pineal
light.
function.
So shall we take some calls?
Well, we could, or should we take a commercial break? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll soon be back with Dr. in the house when we'll open our lines so you all could chat with. Weight loss is critical to, or if you have your own anti-aging strategy, or you want to get these doctors' opinion on, that's we'd really be interested in hearing, please call in when we come back on Doctor in the House.
High blood pressure is as dangerous as an overpumped balloon. Measuring your blood pressure every day can save you from risk of high blood pressure. MicroLife fully automatic upper arm blood pressure monitor with stroke risk detection. MicroLife AFib screens for atrial fibrillation while taking your blood pressure. High blood pressure and atrial fibrillation are both considered controllable risk factors for stroke. If AFib is present during blood pressure measurement, the AFib icon is displayed flashing at the end of the triple measurement. Once 3 measurements are complete, the measurement data are shown on the display. MicroLife, a partner for people, for life.
Need medical assistance? Come check us out at Ultimate Medical Clinic. We offer a wide variety of medical treatments. Why live in pain and suffer with wounds and ulcers?
Ultimate Medical Clinic also provides laser therapy for pain relief and wound healing.
We also treat arthritis, knee, neck pains, diabetic neuropathy, diabetic foot sores, psoriasis, eczema, and many more health conditions. Call us today to schedule your appointment, 665-1188, or visit us at 111A John Street, Montrose, Chaguanas.
Welcome back to Doctor in the House, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Dr. Omar Dean, and tonight I have Dr. Anila Jagat and Dr. Raquel Supir. Dr. Supir is an internist whose practice focuses on losing weight, being healthy, and protecting your health as you get older. So that's what we were supposed to be talking about tonight. I hope that was what we did, because we had chatted about all sorts of things. But anyway, we're opening our lines, so we're interested in hearing how you feel about preventing aging, because aging is a miserable thing. It can be. And what we want to do is to make aging not a miserable thing, to make it a pleasant thing. We could actually enjoy being old and enjoy the fruits of whatever we work for in our life. So please call us, tell us about your ideas about aging, how to prevent it, and just healthy living, how to stay healthy in your life. Right, so we were just talking about...
Yeah, so on the commercial break, we were talking to Dr. Sukhbir about clean eating, because that's something we've been hearing a lot. So and the question I asked was, what did she mean by clean eating? So tell us what you mean by clean eating and how we could achieve this locally.
Sure, Nella. So eating clean for me means very simple. No sugar, no dairy, no gluten, no soy, and no corn. Everyone has their days when they would like to have a little cheat, and I do. But generally, I follow those principles. And so,
I think we'll have to come back to this.
Okay.
This sounds like you've made it simple for us there.
Yeah.
Let's expand on that.
We have a call on the line, so when we come back, we will talk about further about an example of clean eating. So, caller.
Good night.
Good night, caller.
Hello, good night. I've been listening to your program for a short while now, and the doctor in the middle has been speaking about the intermittent fasting. Can I get some more information on that, please? Because we weren't able to get enough. So can you give us like a full explanation on how you go about doing the intermittent fasting so that it's going to help with weight gain and it's going to make you feel healthier and all of that.
Sure. Good night. So, an easy way of how do you eat normally?
Okay,
What is
hello?
your normal diet like?
What
did she have for breakfast?
What did
this
you eat
morning?
for breakfast this morning, lunch, and dinner? Just give me a quick example.
Okay, a normal diet, like I have a coffee and small breakfast. I have a medium kind of lunch and a heavy dinner. But I would like to do the intermittent fasting because when I fast, it's better. And sometimes I go for hours without eating too, and I'd like. So if you can, I want to cut the phone off so I can listen to you on TV, and because there's more people home here want to hear what you're saying, right? So
Sure. Yes.
give us some more information on the intermittent fasting. Yeah, it's going to be very helpful for quite a few people. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So it sounds like that intermittent fasting would be something that would be relatively easy for you to implement, and you're also kind of informally doing it anyway. So I'm guessing you just want to formalize it and get as much health benefit as you can out of it. And I applaud you. That's a very good thing to do. So I'd like to just break it down in terms of people who are diagnosed with diabetes and on their medication, and especially insulin, and then everybody else, basically. So for diabetics on insulin, I would be very careful of the long periods of fasting because of the hypos, the risk of hypos, so the low blood sugars. And just, check your sugars regularly and discuss this with your doctor who takes care of your diabetes before you would consider doing it. I have generally found that people who are not on insulin have no problems doing intermittent fasting at all, and it's quite safe and actually very good for their sugar control whilst they're fasting. So intermittent fasting is a nice tool. It's not a formal diet per se, but it is something that anyone can do. Cultures all over the world do it naturally during periods of spiritual fasting. And we could say intermittent fasting, you can take 2 or 3 days out of your week. Well, there's various ways of doing it. This is the way I tend to do it. Take 2 or 3 days out of your week and set aside those to be your fast days. Start with 2 and then work yourself up. So let's say you choose Monday and Thursday because there's not much going on those days that you need to worry about. And you basically wake up in the morning, you eat no breakfast, you then make sure that you watch your hydration, so you drink lots of fluids. The fluids that are allowed are water, club soda, and tea or coffee with no sugar. I don't like those sweeteners.
Stay away from that.
Stay away from those sweeteners. So generally not to have any drinks that, don't think you can have a Coke Zero because you're not drinking Coke. Stay away from those as well. So the drinks I tend to say are okay are water, club soda, and tea or coffee with no sugar and no milk. And
What about ginger tea or turmeric tea? I find that turns off your
I've forgotten
appetite.
those, Dr. Omardine. Perfect. Yes, I absolutely would love it if you would drink green tea, which is a natural metabolic booster, or you can home make yourself golden tea, which is turmeric and ginger. You can add cinnamon to that, which is also a metabolic booster. And based on, what your current ailments are. So if you need to lose weight, think about the spices that boost your metabolism. But if you have any kind of conditions like thyroid problems, arthritis, anything autoimmune, so any problems with your gut, etc., you could think about anti-inflammatory herbs, and turmeric is a really big one of those. So drinking teas like that. And then again, you have no lunch, no afternoon snack, and you choose your eating window. So you allow yourself 5 hours for the day that you're going to eat. And I tend to have two types of patients. The first set are early birds. They wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, and then they're generally in bed by 10, or even before that, in bed by 9. So I would say you could do your fast from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. Sorry, your eating window is between 2 p.m. to 7 p.m. So you have 2 meals or 1 large meal and snacks during that time.
But this
Or
should be
you'll
easy for this girl to do because she just has a light breakfast.
She
All
just
has to do
has
is
coffee.
breakfast.
She just
Yeah,
skips
she
her
just has
breakfast and pushes
coffee,
her lunch
yeah.
a little bit further back,
further
and
back,
she'll be
and
doing
you'll
it
be doing
already.
it, and then
Yeah.
stop at 7 p.m. and you fasted for that day. That's your day of fasting done. Or if you're a later bird, then you can have, just eat for 5 hours is the recipe. So 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. or 4 p.m. to 9 p.m.
I think that this is such an important subject that maybe we should just have a whole program on this one. What do you think?
On it,
'Cause I
intermittent
think it's
fasting.
really
Yeah, it needs some looking into because there's different ways of doing it. Some
Yeah.
people do 24-hour fasts,
Yeah.
but I
I
can't
tried
make
it and I
that.
found it was difficult for
hard
me.
for
didn't
I
me.
think
know that.
it's up to like 2 o'clock. It's easy to do,
Do
but
it.
then after that, it's really
Becomes
pushing
hard.
yourself. So you could manage up to 2 o'clock, but I think after that, you're really pushing yourself.
But it's important
Yeah.
to make a decision that when on the days that you are doing that you're not eating all 3 meals in that one meal
Yeah,
to make up for
yeah,
it.
of course,
That you
yeah.
are still trying to apply moderation to those.
So we were also talking about clean eating before. So
But
what is?
I just want to admit, that is a little problem. I
Yeah.
think with many Muslim people in Ramadan, they make up for the fact that they fasted through the day by overeating
And
in the
eating
evenings.
sweets and,
yeah, and
yeah.
eating highly processed food. I mean, with a lot of sada roti and oily stuff in the evenings, which is
Paratha and-
yeah,
yeah.
paratha, which is pretty toxic for them. So I think, well, yeah. Anyway, we should eat clean. So you're asking what
So
is
what is
clean
clean?
eating?
So we brought up this paratha and sada issue,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a big one. Doubles for breakfast, roti for lunch, roti for dinner. If you would just try to not have the flour, you would be amazed at how clean and light you feel. And so I don't eat it anymore, and I don't miss it at all. Instead, I eat curry chicken with cassava.
Yeah.
I eat stewed fish with,
With
green fig
dasheen.
and
Oh,
dasheen.
dasheen, yeah.
I've essentially substituted
Suited.
ground provisions and root vegetables for flour in my life, and eating. Clean eating doesn't mean eating like a bird and eating salad all day long. Good nutrition can be got from all
Yeah.
the things that we have in abundance in our lives here in Trinidad, making market and really like, don't you love smoke herring and dal and pak choy?
Yes, of course.
You don't need to eat roti with that.
And what I say to clients is start with your old favorite recipes
yeah.
and switch out the things like the macaroni pie. So if on a Sunday you like the stewed chicken, the macaroni pie, the callaloo, whatever, just take out the macaroni
Just take out
pie.
the macaroni pie,
Do the stewed chicken. You could even do corn cuckoo because it's probably less, that has cheese in it.
Well, corn is an inflammatory
Yeah,
food,
okay.
so I tend to avoid that as well.
It has a little more fiber than flour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like corn.
So
No, I
It
try
makes
not.
you hold on to your water weight.
Okay.
So there's a theory that all healing starts in your gut, and corn. It's just a personal opinion of mine.
I
Yeah,
have no
so
doubt
on,
you're
on
right,
a Sunday you could do the stewed chicken with sweet potatoes
Yeah.
and then a salad and callaloo. So start with the old favorites and just switch out the things like the macaroni pie and the rice and the
It sounds like
roti.
another thing we could have an entire program on,
On
what is
healthy
clean
eating.
The other
because-
thing is your
but my wife
carbohydrate.
keeps giving me corn to eat. But
I
there's-
actually like corn
the
too
thing
because
about corn is
it's
this-
filling, but now I know it's
as a
inflammatory.
As
so
a vegan, you have to sort of mix your, what you call it, to get the essential amino acid base. So corn might be a
Just
little
eat
useful.
lots of quinoa.
Well, that's
quinoa
true
can
too.
Actually,
yeah.
I
yeah,
don't
but
like
my belly,
quinoa.
my belly, I say it's
I
some
am
serious
not
belly
a
pain. in it.
I am not
We
a
have I think we have a
quinoa
call on the
person.
line, guys. Should
So we
we
have
take
a
our
call
call?
on-
Hello there. Good night.
Good night, caller.
Good night. It's me again. I called a while ago, doctor in the middle, and the rest of the doctors. Thank you very much. Particularly when you talk about the no roti, the no flour. We don't really eat that. We eat dasheen and more of those things. And yet when we do, we have a light breakfast and we have lots of fluid, not just mostly water. Don't really use any soft drinks with sugars and stuff like that. So I want to thank you very much for the explanation that you gave, and I think we're on the right track.
My pleasure.
So,
Our pleasure.
thank you. Thank you so much.
Our
Yes, yes,
pleasure.
Yeah, well, thank you for calling.
Thanks for
Good
calling.
night. Do we have another call? Hello?
Hi,
Hi there, good night.
good night. Dr. Omadine.
Yes?
It's a question for Dr. Raka. Good night, doctor.
Good night.
Yes.
I would like to know about drinking coffee and drinking tea. Is coffee fattening? Drinking coffee is black. Is it fattening or is it okay to drink it?
Did you say if drinking
Coffee.
black coffee? So actually, coffee is considered one of the metabolic boosting foods. I don't personally like, lots of coffee or anything in excess, but especially excess coffee because of the caffeine and the potential dehydrating effects of coffee. So if you're drinking coffee, you're not drinking water, essentially. But yes, a cup of coffee with no sugar in it is not fattening at all. If you want to talk about, do you have your coffee with sugar or completely black?
She may be off the air.
She's off the
yeah,
air. She's off
so
the
we
air.
don't know, but you'd recommend is use black coffee, of course. But what about artificial sweeteners? You're not into that?
Well, only 2. So talking about that, the popular thing right now is agave. The new studies are showing that agave is just as bad as cane sugar. Don't touch it. So I personally use coconut sugar because I have gotten myself accustomed to the taste of it, and I find I can use it very safely in diabetics without spiking their blood sugars at all. But another one is stevia, or stevia, however you pronounce it. I don't know the sources of stevia. You have to be careful of, because it comes from a plant, and if you're getting processed stevia, then the thoughts are that it's not as good for you. But with all of these things, it's difficult to really get the source right. So teaching your body to do without, I think, is the safest way to do it. When I first started out in life, I loved 2 tablespoons of
Me too.
sugar in my tea.
Yeah, I couldn't.
And I would not consider that a cup of tea if I didn't have 2 tablespoons of sugar
With
in
some
it.
milk too, huh?
With
Okay,
milk,
yeah.
oh yeah, condensed milk, carnation, evaporated, whatever. But now I've grown to acquire the taste for tea that I put some cinnamon in and those spices that we talked about to give it. I make different blends basically based on how I'm feeling. Ginger, etc. if I have an upset stomach or if I'm feeling fluey. And learning to flavor it differently and then just not have sugar. And I have almond milk instead, and I'm perfectly happy with it now.
It's amazing
Took a little while to
what your
get there,
taste
though.
can change.
Change,
Yeah.
yeah.
So okay, we have another call, I think. Good night, caller. Hello.
Hello.
Yes. Thanks for calling.
Hello, good night.
Good night. Thank you for calling.
The lady in the doctor in the middle.
Yes.
The doctor in the middle.
Yeah.
Yes, good night, sir.
Good night. How are
Good
you
night. I'm
tonight?
good. How are you?
All right. The clean diet.
The flame
The clean,
diet?
the
clean.
the
Clean diet.
eating,
The
yes.
clean diet is like clean.
Yeah, so just try to avoid anything that's processed is clean, I suppose. So if it's growing from the ground, you can pick it from a tree, or you can catch it while it's in the sea or running around. I guess that's all clean. That's what I consider it to be. And most people consider it to be. But what was your question? Sorry.
Huh?
What you wanted to ask about it?
I want to recommend something on the clean diet.
Oh, okay.
Having a clean diet is like you use your black coffee.
Yeah.
Right.
You hear me? Black coffee.
Mm-hmm.
You use a lot of tomato, cabbage,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
carrot,
Sounds good.
and pumpkin and cucumber.
It's
Lovely.
excellent. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this will give you a clean diet. You to get on track with the age.
That sounds very good. So you mentioned tomatoes.
Yeah.
You mentioned cabbage, cucumbers. So what you're mentioning and talking about is colorful vegetables.
Right.
So vegetables that are rich in color.
Yeah.
And they contain something called lycopene. And lycopene is a powerful antioxidant. And it can actually keep all of your cells younger. So yes, colorful vegetables.
No, besides keeping yourself younger also too.
Mm-hmm.
You use some rough skin lemon with warm water on morning after brushing it.
Very good. Yes, I love that.
Right?
And you could even add some apple cider vinegar to that if you want.
No, you don't need all of that. The
All right.
rough skin lemon juice alone with the warm water
Okay. No, I
helps
agree.
thoroughly through your day.
Lovely.
It make you drink a lot of water when the day come.
Yes.
It make you eat a lot when the day come, and you sleep very well when the night come.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing that. I completely agree with you. It's a perfect drink, isn't it, Dr. Omardine?
Yeah. I love the pumpkin and the carrots.
And
Every this
pumpkin,
guy have
yes,
some good
you said-
ideas.
Yeah, you have some great ideas.
I hope he really does it. Yeah.
Dr. Omardine is going to, I hope you don't mind me saying, soon start farming your own vegetables.
Oh no, that's my big dream in my life. Yeah, one day we haven't been able to grow pumpkin or squash yet, but one day we're planning to. Yeah.
I would love
Shatta
love to do
in
that.
for bread.
We have
fruit, all
another
this it
call.
is. We have another call, I think. Good night, caller. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Dr. Sugar. Very interesting program. Now, what I have on mornings is I make a smoothie with A, B, C. A is for green apple, B is for beet, and C is for carrot. And I also add a bit of ginger and saffron.
Very nice. Sounds delicious and very healthy.
Yes, so do you approve of it?
I approve. So what I love about what you're doing is you're using one fruit and two vegetables. And that is very good because we do have to be a little bit careful about the sugar content in fruit, especially when we smoothie it or juice it, because of the excess sugar leading to the risk of diabetes. So mixing the ratio of one fruit and two vegetables is perfect. The only thing I would say that you could even make it even better if you felt like it is adding some ground flaxseed to that, which is, just boosts your fiber intake even more. And then I think it sounds like a perfect drink.
We're having that for breakfast and lunch. It's
But,
filling.
It's a bit excessive.
Hello?
Yeah,
Yes.
sorry.
Yeah. Now, if what I normally do is like about an hour after I have my breakfast, which will be bread with flax and chia seed.
Right.
I make my own bread, right, with the flax seed and chia seed, and I may have, a bit of vegetable like O'Reilly or okra quite often because I grow them in my garden. And I have I make a big cup of tea with skim milk, no sugar, and I also use the non-dairy creamer. So that is about an hour after I have this smoothie.
So
And
just
then-
the
and then I
smoothie is
have
not,
my lunch
the
about-
smoothie isn't filling enough for you for breakfast.
Yes, and I'll have lunch about 3 o'clock in the evening.
Oh, okay, that's a good amount of time. So you could also try to make your smoothie more of a meal
Yes.
by adding some almond milk to it or avocado, something that is going to fill you up a little bit more. You could even do oats in your smoothie sometimes, raw oats, just blending it up to see if that keeps you a little extra filled. Are you asking me whether I think the breakfast is a healthy breakfast?
Yes. I want
How many slices of your lovely, delicious homemade bread are you having?
two sizes.
Two. And what do you eat then for lunch?
Lunch, I may have sometimes soup with provision and a lot of pumpkin,
Sounds good.
cassava, green fig, dasheen. Oh, that is once a week, right? Or twice a week.
Yeah.
Ordinarily, it might be like rice with sometimes a pilau.
Okay. All right. So there's things for health and there's things for weight loss. So for health, the easy thing to do would be to cut out that rice altogether or swap it for brown basmati rice. So you can get Roland's from the supermarket, which is, whole grain and better for your gut and better for your health in general.
Expensive.
It's not expensive, Roland's. I mean, compared to if you're buying basmati rice anyway, the price is comparative. If you eat long grain rice, it is more expensive. But then you want to do your portion control anyway, so one bag will last you for longer. So I tend to say, everybody don't count, calories and don't weigh food and all of that. Don't bother with that. But you can just take your fist. So I normally say carbohydrates no bigger than the size of your fist. If you have a very big fist, then obviously be practical and eat a little bit less. So that much brown basmati rice is what you're going to eat. And then if you think about that in relation to the bread, I think you could probably do with a little less bread, especially as you're having the drink for breakfast. So you can cut down to a slice if you can, or a slice and a half, and then try to eat more of the vegetables from your garden.
Yes,
with
I
that
think so.
to satisfy your...
Eat more. I say cut out the bread, cut out the rice. Eat a lot more like okra, pumpkin.
But sometimes you just need a little bit. I would cut it out altogether, homemade or not. That's me, and I have.
But you could gradually reduce
You
it.
can
That's what I think.
reduce
That's what,
it.
It's like when you were speaking earlier, 2 days for the week, don't eat
Eat it.
any.
Yeah.
So
Anything.
start with 2 days
That's a
for the
good
week where you're
idea.
not eating any carbohydrates.
yeah, because
you
once
can
you do it for 2
pretend.
days, you'll
Yeah.
realize you
So-
don't really need it. That's
Because recently I ended up having a roti, and I just popped into Massey and I was hungry.
Yeah.
And I got a roti. And I just felt so heavy while eating the
yes,
roti. I started to fall asleep while eating the roti. And I realized I hadn't eaten like a dal puri roti for a long time because
Yeah.
the heaviness I felt while eating this for lunch, I was like, that alone alerted me to the fact, well, you haven't had roti in a while.
I don't think our bodies were really made to process flour like we do.
Yeah.
And so that is how you know you're clean, is when you can eat something and you don't feel like, ugh,
Yeah.
for like an hour after, and your
Yeah.
body is not reacting to your carbohydrate load like that, and you can continue going on doing what you're doing. You're pooping twice or after every meal essentially, and you're clean.
Yeah.
Wow, you're into pooping and all. You're right. No.
It's
We
one
could talk.
of those
We could
things that I talk about
we
with my
could
patients every
have
how
a
it's going to the
whole
toilet.
discussion on this. But this is a really important aspect. And this is okay. We have one more caller. No? I take. Good night, caller. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for
night.
calling.
Good night, Dr. Medina. This is for Dr. Sabir.
Right.
How often can you have oats? How many times a And is it better to have puri or raw with?
Could you say
sorry,
that
we
one more
haven't heard.
time?
Pardon?
Could you say it again, please, and slowly? We didn't get it.
Okay. How often can you have oats? How many times a week can you eat? And is it better in a smoothie or eat it raw with other things?
How many times a week? How many times a week can we do what?
Oats. Oats.
A drop in as soon as she says that word.
Say
Is
it again
flax
one more time.
seeds?
OATS. Oats.
Oats.
Oh,
Oats. Okay, oats. That's a really good question. It's a controversial subject. Dr. Umadine, what do you think about
Oh
oats?
my gosh, I've been addicted to oats for years now. It's just, I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but I mean,
So basically, our paleo. Have you heard of the paleo diet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So paleo is this potentially fad diet. I don't really know. It's a school of thought that we don't eat anything that is basically like we eat like our ancestors when we were hunting and gathering. And oats is a modern invention. We have to farm oats and we have to, what's it called? Farming, but rye and barley. That's a whole practice. So the paleo school of thought is that oats come under a grain and therefore, you know, it's not clean for our bodies and we shouldn't eat it. Personally, I love it in terms of it being a beautiful carbohydrate for people to have. For diabetics, if you really want to get blood sugars down, the first thing to do is say eat oats instead of bread. So I think as an option, instead of common breakfast foods like cereal that's packed with sugar, bread that's loaded with carbohydrate, oats can be really good. Whether you in particular can digest oats and oats is suitable for you or not is a question that you can try to let your body tell you. So if you eat it, are you getting any bloating or abdominal pain? Do you feel like it constipates you a little bit more or not? Or if it has the opposite effect of giving you diarrhea? I think that would be your answer rather than me telling you how many times a week you should have it, because everybody's different. But technically, in terms of a blood sugar diabetic point of view, it's the ideal breakfast.
it's certainly a lot better than flour and rice. I mean, I would say
it's a lot better than flour and rice.
And your taste change and your intestinal flora changes. So even if you're gassy in a shirt, I think the more you eat it, the more your
accustomed
microflora.
you get, potentially, yes.
Okay, well, I think we'll have to wrap up.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for tuning in tonight to Doctor in the House. I've learned a lot from these ladies here. I'm very glad that they were able to join us. I'm really hoping they can come back this year and educate us a little more on healthy living, healthy aging. So, we're wrapping up the program and hope to see you next week on Doctor in the House on behalf of the station, our sponsors, and my guests. Thanks for tuning in tonight to Doctor in the House.
Thank you.
Thank you.
مولاي صل وسلم دائما